G'day, you're listening to the Virtual Staff Room, and this is episode 41, Culture and Vision. Hi, my name's Chris Betcher. Thanks for joining us here on the Virtual Staff Room. Before we get stuck into today's episode, I just thought I'd mention a couple of quick things. One is you can now follow the Virtual Staff Room on your favourite social media services. So if you're a Facebook fan, you can get us over on the Facebook at the Virtual Staff Room podcast. And if you just do a search for that, you should find us. We'd love you to click the little like button and we'll let you know about anything that comes up in terms of the podcast. If you're more of a Twitter fan, you can get us there on V Staff Room. Virtual Staff Room apparently has too many letters for a Twitter name, so it's V Staff Room, and you can follow us there. We'll just keep you informed, let you know of episodes coming up and whatnot. The other thing I just wanted to mention was a couple of weeks ago I did a course on open educational resources, and it really made me think about a lot of things about licensing and the way we share. I obviously want this podcast to be shared far and wide, and whoever finds benefit from it, that's the whole point of putting it together. So I've changed the license terms on it, which was always Creative Commons licensed, but it was a non-commercial share-alike license, which I thought was the right thing to do, but on reflection, I'm just going to make it a buy license. So basically, it's an attribution only. If you want to share this podcast anywhere at all, reuse it, remix it, do whatever you want with it, that's fine. Go for it. Knock yourself out. Just mention where you got it from. That's all I ask. So that should make it pretty open. This episode, we talk to Helen Otway. Helen's a teacher in Victoria in Australia, and she has lots and lots of vision about school leadership and changing culture within a school. So it's a great conversation. Here we go with Helen Otway. All right, well, g'day. I'm talking to Helen Otway today. G'day, Helen.
Hi, how are you going?
Very well. Helen, you're responsible for, well, first of all, tell us who you are and what you do, and we can talk about what you're responsible for later.
Okay, I'm Helen Otway, and I'm from Melbourne. I'm an assistant principal in a P-12 college, Manor Lakes College, and I've been doing that now, well, this is my third year. I've been a teacher since the mid-'80s, so I've been around for quite some time and pretty much involved in all things ICT, thinking, curriculum, inquiry, peer coaching and lots of other things, really.
Yep. I get the impression that you and I are interested in the same sort of stuff.
I think so.
And we actually did meet each other, a couple of times, but most recently in ULearn last year when we were there in Christchurch.
Yeah, look, and that was really fantastic. Great place to go, great conference. And I think the school that we visited together there was fabulous, just to see what other people are doing in the way.
Discovery School, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was actually the sister school, and it was called Unlimited.
Unlimited.
Yeah, Unlimited is, I think it's year 8 and above, but the Discovery School is a junior school, so that's something like P to 8. Yeah. But they work in collaboration, and just seeing how they do things was fantastic.
Yeah, it was interesting. And we might have a little chat about school design and, school environment and all that sort of stuff, because I think it plays a really important part in what you can do in a school by thinking about, what the school itself looks like.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you, your thing, as well as obviously being, are you in a classroom teaching at the moment?
No.
Okay, so you are the deputy principal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also have a responsibility for wide-scale deployment of professional development across a group of schools, and you've also been an Ultranet Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yep.
Sounds like you're really into it.
All crazy. No, look, I do love it. I'm actually currently just about to start my Master's in School Leadership and reading a fabulous book called Learning by Heart. And it really touches upon many of these aspects that we're probably going to talk about, Chris, with, teacher leaders and developing a culture within a school. And that's something that's really close to my heart, because I think with anything that we try to do in a school, whether it's introducing ICT or introducing a different type of initiative, without the right culture in a school, it's pretty hard to achieve that.
Yeah, totally. And the longer I do this, the more I realise that word culture is really the linchpin of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
It's not about teaching people how to do something or gain a skill or whatever. It's about changing the culture of the way they believe that what they're doing impacts upon the broader. I've lost my words there, but it's a much broader issue than just simply learning some stuff.
Yeah, and I think, as teachers, we tend to sort of work closely with our students and within the classroom, and then it's really hard as a teacher to sort of feel that they've got the capacity to lead. And then even now as an assistant principal and being a leader as such, it's still difficult because you still find those challenges with culture constantly being there. So unless you sort of address those underlying issues or things that are happening within a school, you're not going to get to where you want to be. Very interesting times ahead at the moment.
Okay, so let's take a two-pronged approach to thinking about this problem. It's all about culture. I think we agree on that. So what is the culture that we're trying to move towards, and what are the obstacles towards getting there? Can we frame the conversation in those kind of terms?
Yeah.
So when you say we want to move towards a culture, what's the culture we want to move towards?
I think the culture that we want to move towards is that as a school, we're not just a school, we're actually a learning community. Now, we hear those terms a lot, learning community, and we've been saying them for years. But actually understanding what that means is something different. Realising that a school is a place where kids learn, where teachers can learn as well, where you can invite parents in to learn, and to realise that at any one point you're not going to know everything, obviously, and there's going to be other people that can help you, even students be able to help you. So letting down our guard, so to speak, so that we're not constantly feeling intimidated or defending ourselves, but being able to appreciate that we are on a learning journey and there's always going to be new things that will help us to achieve a better way of doing things, or sharing our now I'm losing my words, Chris, but
It's easy to do. We're thinking on the fly here.
We are. But
There's no script for this show, Helen.
No. But the ability to be able to teach and to lead, how do we share that with others? And it's having those conversations and being able to have those conversations in a forum that's safe, so that you don't feel like you're going to be put down or criticised or, have the eyes rolling in the background by somebody else. Do you know what I mean? So developing that sort of a culture. And I think as teachers or as leaders, as educators, we're very protective of what we do. And, you often hear of those teachers who will do these great things in their classrooms, but they're too scared to share them. One, they don't want somebody else doing them because they want to get the highlights, or they're too scared to share them because they might find that somebody else next door, because they haven't got that capacity to do that, are going to, poo-poo them because they're doing great things and the other person can't. So it's about breaking down those barriers and being open to change and open to new ideas and open to self-improvement. And that's a tough thing because that's right at the core of the person. It's not something that you can just learn overnight.
That's where it's coming down for me a lot lately too, as I deal with more and more people on this kind of idea of creating culture within a school of learning, is I'm starting to realise there are a lot of people in the teaching profession who really aren't good learners themselves, who probably don't value, again, talking catchphrases, lifelong learning.
Yeah.
And it becomes difficult for me to work with those people, but it becomes difficult for those people to take the next steps in making the learning process for their kids different, because I don't think they really appreciate the value of lifelong learning themselves, which is kind of ironic for a teacher.
It is, and it seems to be the case in a lot of areas of education. And so, and then you have to start unpacking that, as I was saying. Why is that so? Why are they actually feeling that they can't learn? Is it because they feel like they're going to be ridiculed or put on show or made to feel silly if they have a go? Is it that their leadership expects too much or doesn't expect enough? I mean, there's so many different factors that come into play here, and it's really hard to sort of find the thing that really brings it all together. I think, as I said this year, doing my master's in school leadership is going to really help me unpack this, because there's so many times when I've been so frustrated and so, wondering why can't we do these things that we're trying to do? Why, if we've been talking about ICT in education now for goodness knows how many years,
30.
Why can't we do them? What's stopping us? Surely it's not that hard. We all use technology in our personal lives. Why aren't we using it in our day-to-day teaching? So, you've got to dig deep, and this digging deep is really starting to develop in my head this year with some of the readings that I'm doing. Who knows? I might get to an answer, but I might not.
Yeah, well, let me know if you do, because I'd be interested to know what it is.
Oh, well.
There is kind of a nexus between... and look, this probably sounds like a really biased thing for me to say, because as everybody knows, I'm pretty pro the use of educational technology in education. But it does seem to me that there is a kind of a way of thinking. When I see teachers who teach using technology, it's not just that they're teaching with technology, it's that they're actually approaching the task of educating differently. And I really do think that there's something about those people who kind of lock onto this idea of what technology can do in education that doesn't just, it's not about just putting a few computers in there and saying, wow, this is cool. It does fundamentally change the way you do it. And maybe that's because if you start to put technology in the hands of kids, you're divesting the authority in the room from teacher to student. Maybe there's a different sense of differentiation going on because every kid's able to work at a different pace and to do slightly different things. I don't know what it is, but there is actually pedagogical links, I think, with the use of technology that goes beyond just using technology for its own sake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think... obviously, when people first start using technology in a classroom, they do the same old, but use a technology instead. But it's getting to the point of doing things differently and passing over or letting go of the reins so that the kids can actually steer the learning themselves and use that technology as a tool for inquiry. And I think when I introduced myself, I said a few things. I said ICT was one of the things that has really developed in my capacity as a teacher, but also things around the inquiry learning, thinking curriculum, because without the inquiry and thinking curriculum, you're not going to have that true pedagogy happening with the ICT. And, that they all sort of mesh together so nicely because they're the things that really get the best out of the kids. They can go and research, but then they can problem solve and they can create. I can remember doing a PD for a visiting school, probably about 6-7 years ago now. They came to my school, and at that stage I was at Essendon North Primary School, and they came in to see what we were doing, and I gave my talk about making a difference with ICT, it was called, and talked about some of the things that my students were doing in the classroom. And one of the questions that was raised was, well, Helen, you've spoken a lot about the kids being producers. Are they consumers as well? And I still reflect on that now because I think, my kids were producers even back then. They used to produce. They used to create their own little movies. My kids were into animation. They used to do a lot of things with the technology because the technology was there. It was just amongst them. We had the iPods, we had the laptops even back then. We had cameras and video cameras. It was all there. All they needed to do was go to the cupboard. We didn't have one-to-one back then. They'd go to the cupboard, grab what tool they wanted and use it. And I think over time what's happened is we've tried to develop some sort of structures for using ICT. I don't know if it was the same in New South Wales. Having rotations of activities where it would become the turn of such and such a group to use the laptops.
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of stuff is almost crazy because you can't wait to use the technology. If you need to use it, you need to use it.
No, it's not an authentic approach to doing it, is it?
It's not. And that's where, along the way, some schools perhaps haven't thought about what true use of technology is. And having structures like that in place only inhibit the true use. I mean, the way we're going down the track now with the one-to-one is fantastic. At our school at Manor Lakes, we've got a one-to-one program in 4-year levels in 7, 8 and 9 with MacBooks and Year 6 with iPads. And, that what's happening in those year levels is incredible because they have access all the time. But as you were saying, Chris, before, people can still do the same old stuff. They can do the same stuff with the technology, and that happened even at our place. But that's okay, but they need to move past that. Yeah. They need to think differently and get rid of the worksheets that are saved on the server to access and to move past that in developing some online places for them to actually collaborate and work together. So, it does take time, but I think if you put the structures in place, allow the teachers to feel safe in exploring and making mistakes, then you're going to help create that culture for change to happen. If you have too many structures and too many limitations and too many this is the way you do it, then you're going to have issues with people not wanting to be innovative. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes, perhaps we're going down that path of, to have the best schools around, we are governed by our departments saying, well, this is the way we're going to do it, these are the initiatives, and all of a sudden we're so burdened by all these initiatives that we don't have that time to develop our own way of doing things within our schools and to have that room and that flexibility for innovation and mistakes, because with mistakes comes innovation. Or vice versa.
Yeah, actually, with mistakes come a lot of things. And we should be really, focusing far more on getting things wrong than getting things right. And I don't mean we want to be wrong all the time.
No.
I just mean it's about having that culture where being wrong is just not seen as something that's a bad thing. Being wrong should be seen as something that's part of the process on the way to learning what's right, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, and you think about in your own life, if you make a mistake, whether you're out in the garden or cooking, whatever you're doing, if you make a mistake, boy, you learn that, next time you're not going to add that much, whatever it was, pepper or whatever it was, and you fix it up for next time.
You've got teenage kids, haven't you?
I do. I've got a 17-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old daughter.
So the 17-year-old's probably going through learning to drive right now.
Oh, yes.
Right. See, now when my son's 18 and he's on his green peas now and he went through the whole learning to drive thing, I think watching your kids learn to drive is probably one of the most obvious examples of how someone learns. And you have to stall the car at the lights and bunny hop up the road and, nearly pull out into the traffic. And, yeah, you don't want your kids to get hurt, but, unless they do unless they get it wrong, they're never going to get it right.
No.
You don't ever just get in the car and drive.
No.
And yet, we realise that, when you learn to do something as complex as driving a car, it's trial and error and you do it and you practice and you got to get your hours up and all the rest of it. And it's kind of funny when you go into a school setting because those iterations of learning don't seem to be part of the culture of school. School is very much of the, I'll show you what you need to know. We'll give you a couple of chances to demonstrate it, and then we'll test you on it. But there's not an iterative sort of loop built into most learning processes in school in the same way that there is, say, watching someone to drive or learning to fly a plane or even watching a baby learn to walk, where it's just doing it over and over and over and over and getting it wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong until you get it right. And maybe we don't have time in schools to do that. But that's really seems more and more evident to me that that's actually how learning happens.
And I think, we have so many things happening in our schools now because we're so focused now on getting our scores up. It's all about scores at the moment, and certainly coming up to NAPLAN in May. I do see the need for knowing where our schools are at, but I worry that there is so much emphasis placed on these tests. And when you've got that sort of constraint and that sort of pressure on a classroom teacher, they're going to put their energies into that. I'm going to tell you what you need to know, and then I'm going to give you an activity, and then we're going to test you, and then we're going to see where you aren't doing the right thing, and then we're going to work on it a bit more. And it doesn't allow for the kids to have that chance to fail and to problem solve themselves.
And ironically, I think with that all of these high stakes tests, they're supposed to be measuring what a kid can do, but they become the focus of what the kid does. Mm-hmm. So rather than learn to do X, Y, Z and then have this test to say, well, are they any good at X, Y, Z? It becomes the test is all about making the kid learn X, Y, Z. It's all that's about.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to read you something out of Learning by Heart.
Okay.
Because I've been reading it now. And when you talked about the driving, it's got an example here from a sophomore student, and it's American. I'm just going to read it now. I just didn't like it. It's like this. Let's say you don't know how to drive a car, and I'm going to teach you. I can say, well, you're going to have to do it. To do this, you're going to have to press down the brake and throw it into drive. But after a while, I can't do too much more talking. You've got to have to get behind the wheel and do it yourself. Yeah. And I think that's how school should be. Instead of being told how to do things, you have to do it more yourself. I mean, after telling me the basics, shut up, let me do it now. That's just how I am. I read that without glasses, so I'm going to find my glasses.
You did very well.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of the culture shift I think we're facing in schools. And you started off by saying it's all about creating culture, and I don't know whether that's what you meant by that, but that's, in my head, that's what I sort of think when I talk about the culture within a school or within the education system generally, is moving away from this idea that it's simply all about just having some answers that you always have to get right.
And I think in time we'll get there. There's certainly going to come a time when we realise that our efforts at the moment in developing greater achievement marks is going to backfire. I think in time we're going to realise that the good learning and the opportunities to problem solve and to make mistakes, that they are so beneficial that what we're doing at the moment may not be allowing that time for the kids and for the teachers.
Suppose that's what I was getting at when I said I think it's all arse about.
Yeah,
because if you just focus on learning what you're supposed to learn and having a good learning experience, then you ought to be able to pass the test anyway. I mean, a driving test, to come back to the driving example, if I went for a driving test tomorrow, I'd expect to pass, not because I've studied for it, I've learnt it, or I've focused on learning my driving. It's just because I know how to drive. And so I don't have a problem with being tested on knowing how to drive because I can drive. And it's kind of like that. If you go into school and you just do what you're supposed to do and you learn all the interesting stuff and you unpack concepts and the kids interact with them and they make media around them or whatever else you do to get the kids to engage in learning, then a test at the end should simply go, yeah, of course we know that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know why it's not like that. It's so logical.
It does seem logical. So, again, it gets down to the hesitations that we have as educators. What is it that's actually stopping us from doing the things that we want to do within our schools? Is it because we don't have the self-confidence to be leaders and to have these discussions within our own schools? Is it because there might be competition? I think in schools there is competition.
I think personally that there's just a lot of acceptance of the status quo. And one of the most valuable things, let me put this another way. Of all the teachers that I see doing some pretty amazing teaching, they're all fairly self-reflective. And whether that's through blogging or whatever, they think about what they do. They don't just go to work every day and do what they did yesterday or last year or whatever. They actually think constantly about how can this be better than what I did last time? That's that self-reflective cycle. And I don't know, I think when you get into that self-reflection process, you start to actually question things you do rather than just blindly do them.
Yeah, and I think, one of our topics today was going to be around professional development or professional learning. And I think, the movement that we need to make with that is to develop professional learning programs and opportunities that allow teachers to reflect. And that's one of the things that I've been involved in the past with the peer coaching. And with any sort of coaching, it has that built-in time to have a discussion and reflection time. And that's where it becomes really powerful. The workshops that you go to for an hour after school and then you head home, they don't work. We know that.
Absolutely not.
So therefore, something like that, the peer coaching or, as I said, any type of coaching where you have an opportunity to sit down with the coach and have a discussion about what's been happening in the classroom or what you've been doing, then they're the perfect possibilities or opportunities for you to develop as a teacher.
So in a really practical sort of hands-on, nuts and bolts way, can you give me any examples of stuff that you've seen really work in schools in terms of trying to change cultures?
Well, one of the things, I guess I'll talk about two places. One, my previous school, and the school that I'm in now. The previous school that I was in, and this is going back a few years now, the culture was very much about learning together, and our professional learning programs were very much around having dialogue, about working together in teams, about sharing our work. And that's why I used to present way back in the early 2000s, because even as a teacher returning from family leave, I was then encouraged to go out and share what I was doing with other schools. And having that sort of culture of sharing your craft was so important for us to grow as a school, because when you start sharing your craft, you're open to praise, but you're also open to criticism. Yep. And when you put those two together, it gives you an opportunity to see what worked, to explain or to think about, well, why did what I did work, and try to work out a story that can go with it to help share your craft with others. So the more we did that, the more we actually shared our craft with not only the people within our school, but also people external to our school, the better we were at developing our craft. That's as a teacher.
That's really coming all the way back to reflection again, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And I think, even the book that I'm reading now talks about you've got to have that reflection to grow. And we know that with our kids. And that's why we do a lot of reflection. In fact, my students would always say to me, and they would call me Miss Otway back then, Miss Otway, we're doing more reflection on our reflection. But it was really about, getting them to know what they were learning, not just what they were learning, how they were learning, why they were learning, not just the content. Now that I'm an assistant principal within a large school, currently around about 1,200 kids, and we're going to grow to about 2,500, I'm trying to develop that now in this setting.
Was that a Greenfield school? Did you start that?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Absolutely,
Greenfield. So we opened in 2009, and I came on board November 2008. So I was part of the college right at the beginning, which is fabulous.
Okay, so I'm not sure how much of this question you can answer, but when you start a greenfield school, in other words, you've got no legacy, you're literally drawing the line in the sand and going, okay, we start here, and you introduce them a year group at a time. Do you find, I'm just interested in how you find teachers to staff a school like that? Because you'd be in a unique position to basically get who you want, yes?
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You get who you want. You get a lot of teachers.
I've worked in several schools where it's like, oh, this could be such a great school if only those three people would leave. But to have that ability to just put the right people in from the word go.
And I think we did that quite well. We were able to recruit all our teachers. And when we talk about this, we talk about recruiting to culture, even though we probably didn't have a real culture at that stage, but we knew what we wanted. Right. However, you're still going to find, and a lot of people say that, oh, you're so lucky, you're still going to find that when you do recruit or when you do bring teachers, they do come from somewhere. And when they come from somewhere else, they do bring a lot of ideas or I didn't want to say that. And that's fair enough. That happens. So we've got teachers who have come from schools where they haven't used technology, or they've come from schools where perhaps they haven't been allowed to explore inquiry approaches to learning. They're great teachers and we work with them. Yep. But we still have to work with them. It's not as if we've recruited to our culture and all of a sudden they're there, wonderful, and, they know what we're all on about. We actually still do need to build that together. So over the last couple of years, just speaking about developing that culture within our school, all those normal things like developing the vision, we've done that right at the word go with our staff, with our kids, with our community. And in the last year, I've been looking at the philosophy of learning because I felt that a lot of the work that we were doing wasn't going to actually happen if we didn't have a core belief about learning. So my work last year was very much around, well, what is it that we believed to be ideal about learning? So we brainstormed all of that and came up with our true beliefs about it. Our next step after that was to think about...
And the good thing about that would be that simply having those discussions helps get everybody on the same page.
Well, that's the thing. If you start including everybody, then everyone has ownership. They feel like their words have come out on that bit of paper.
Yeah, and having everybody on the same page is another way of saying culture.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And look, you can still have differences. You can still approach things, slightly differently, but that core belief is there. The second phase that we went through was if that's what we believe learning to be, what do we as teachers and educators need to do? So then we brainstormed that so that they were our actions. If this is what we want learning to be, what do we as educators need to do? Then our last column that we're going to work on this year is, okay, we know what learning is at our place. We know what we need to do as educators. But what does it look like for the kids? What exactly are the kids doing? What is the evidence that we're seeing? So that's our next bit of brainstorming and collaboration that we're going to work on. And hopefully over, the last 3 years, then we're going to develop a real culture around, well, what is learning? And that's so important. And I think the more we do this, the more we see that as adults, we're part of it. Yeah. So it's not just for the kids, but we as educators need to be learners as well.
Yeah. Do you have any programs in place to bring parents into that equation as well?
Yeah, well, when we did the vision, that was huge. We had a whole hall filled with the parents, with a representation of the parents, a representation of the local community, so people who weren't parents but part of the local community, shop owners and that sort of thing, as well as our kids and staff being part of that process, because we realised that being a new school in a very new suburb, we needed to be part of the bigger community. So that worked really well. I guess with the learning part, the learning philosophy, we've shared with our parents, but we probably haven't included them as much, and that's something that we probably need to do a little bit more around as well. So
don't feel bad. Nobody does that well.
I know, and you get that horrible time word. You sort of get pushed for time. And because we were doing it after school in our professional learning time, it's
interesting though. I mean, even schools that even profess to, be real learning communities where everybody's involved and stuff. I don't know too many schools that allow kids and parents to be on selection panels for staff, for example.
Yeah, and they do that so well in New Zealand. I don't know if you've seen any of the schools that, oh my gosh, they have the kids on the panels. We actually talked to some of our kids recently and said, we're going to get some new teachers. Well, how would you feel about being on a panel? They just looked at us with blank eyes and thought we were idiots. But maybe
when you
that's
think about it, employing a teacher in a school without having some representation of the student opinion is insane.
Yeah,
Of course you should ask the kids. They're the ones that are going to be, directly affected.
But don't forget, they're affected by what's been before. And for them, that just seemed like the most crazy, bizarre thing for them. But that's only because of the culture of school in the past. So, we need to sort of break past that.
Yeah. Hey, you've been trialling these iPads.
Yes, we have been
trialling.
About that. Yeah, look, we're part of the department's initiative, the Victorian Education Department. And we're very lucky to be selected last year as one of the trial schools, and there's 9 trial schools. So last year we were able to have them for our Year 5s, and because it's an 18-month trial, the Year 6s now have them because I took them up from last year. That means we have 4 Year 6 classes at the moment running with the iPads, so it's 1-to-1. They get to take them home. They get to use them throughout the day as they need them. It's going well. It's going well.
Good.
It's different.
The podcast before this one that I recorded not so long ago was with 3 other teachers who are all in schools that are doing iPod trials. And one of the things that came out in that discussion was this, we keep hearing the word trial. We're doing an iPod trial. I mean, when is it going to become real? When does it stop being a trial and, it's actually working, let's do it.
And look, that's really funny, Chris, because when we did our one-to-one laptop program in 2009 as a first year, we called it a trial, and we soon realised we need to stop calling it a trial because this is going to keep going. It's actually not going to stop.
We don't have a textbook trial or a football field trial. It's you just decide this is what you need and you do it. But it's kind of interesting because everybody's calling it a trial.
And I think because it's a department's trial as such, it's their initiative. It's not something that we've done ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between our laptop program that we have funded ourselves. Well, it's a dual payment between parents and us. We did that ourselves. We had no support from anybody other than our, Mac suppliers to come and help us. Yeah. But this one is sponsored and supported by the department.
Right.
The iPad trial. There I go again, the iPad trial.
Exactly. So where do they fit in? And again, this is a question I asked the other guys, so I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are on it as well. Where do they fit in? Originally, I kind of suggested to the other mob that, in a sense, if they're a trial, that suggests they're almost like a solution looking for a problem. They seem like an ideal something you should have in a school. We're not quite sure exactly where they're going to fit in yet. We're going to trial it and see. Where do you think the sweet spot is? Where are they good at fitting into a school situation?
Interesting question.
Because I've heard of a school in Victoria, Queensland, who deployed iPads to all of their kids, and I thought, that's interesting. And when I read the article, it was actually all they did was load all the textbooks on there. It's basically a book reader, and that's all they're doing with it. And you and I both know you can do way more than that. And to be fair, they probably are as well, but that's the way the story was reported.
Yeah. And I think that's the tough thing, that we do want to move away from just being a reader to being something that you can be a producer on. And we have to get away from just being consumers to allowing the kids to be producers even on the iPads. A lot of the apps that we have at the moment, and there was a list of about 60, and the other guys probably would have told you this as well, a lot of them are apps that you can develop skills, but there are also some that you can create on. Yep. The difficult thing here at the moment is how to share the work or share the learning across the board. So that, I think that's why the department's calling it an iPad trial, because there are some limitations. It's not quite as easy as having, say, a MacBook or a laptop.
Agreed.
Where you can actually do a lot of collaboration with those. Yeah. So this is where they're trying to find out solutions as to how it can be used to really have that collaborative approach to learning. Yeah. And things like Dropbox and things like that, you can share across to Dropbox. But they're still...
Great little app, Dropbox.
Yeah. But yeah, there's still a lot that needs to be learnt, and there's still a lot of frustration that even our teachers experience with accessing what the kids are doing. And the last thing that you want to do is not be able to see what the kids are doing.
Yeah.
I can remember before our schools were networked, how frustrating it was for us to see what was on those computers. And now that everything's networked, it's so easy.
Yeah.
You can do so much collaboration. And now that we have, possibilities to share through, what am I trying to say, Chris, through, internet,
Yep.
then you've got great opportunities.
Networked learning.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're trying to really sort out with the iPads. How effective are they going to be for that sort of network learning? What I see as being a real plus would be to see those iPads down in the junior classes. That's my ambition.
Junior being
prep.
Prep.
Yeah, prep 1, 2. We tried so hard this year to get them into our prep years.
I think they're a great solution for down there.
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the funds, but we haven't stopped going on about it. And, eventually we might get there. But at the moment, and you met these people in New Zealand, we have a wonderful teacher, Sam, who was our Year 7 teacher last year. Now he's our prep teacher. He's actually collaborating with the Year 6 teachers who have got the iPads in their classrooms, and they're working together so that the Year 6s work with the prep class and help them become familiar with the iPads. Ultimately, what we want to do is have them there for the little preppies to access when they're doing their, what we call the Australian Developmental Curriculum, which is very much around inquiry. It is inquiry learning, but on a smaller scale, so that they can actually access these tools, and whether they can then upload photos, do a little drawing, save that across, type some words in, record their voices, and just some really quick ways to record what they're learning on the iPads.
Yeah.
That would absolutely be brilliant. That's the sort of thing we used to do with the iPods a while ago, record self-reflections of the students. But if you could do that on the iPad, draw, write, eventually hopefully take photos, all that sort of thing, then that's a really great snapshot of what the kids have been doing down in those lower levels, and that quick, because they need that quick feedback, the little ones. And you can do that with the iPad quite easily.
I don't know about taking photos. We don't comment on unreleased product at Apple, you know that.
Oh, well. Who knows?
I can tell you some funny stories about that.
Maybe
but I won't. I'll publicly congratulate you again on being selected into the Apple Distinguished Educator program.
Oh,
which
thank you.
You got last week. Congratulations.
I did. So that was very nice to get that. And yeah, it's going to be fantastic heading up to Sydney and being part of that community.
It should be fun. I got involved a little bit in the ADE stuff last year because
Oh, did you?
Well, I got to do some workshops and presentations for Apple as part of the ITSC program, and so I got to hang out with a lot of the ADE group, and it's a fun group.
It is a fun group, yeah. Yeah, I can remember my very first ITSC back in 2000 up at Wollongong. That was very good. That was lots of fun. That's when they used to have just the one conference. So, yeah, it was good.
Back in the day, that takes me back.
Yeah. And I think that was the very first year that the Australian ADEs got the ADEs.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
But I hope that I can live up to their standards,
You'll have fun. It'll be good.
Good.
I think all the stuff you've raised there about professional development and about culture change, I think you've hit the nail on the head, rather. Because it's about culture change. It's about getting people to buy into a common vision and all move in the same direction.
Yeah,
and every school I've ever worked at which struggled with that, it was because people were just going in different directions. Everyone had different underlying philosophies of what education was supposed to be about, and so consequently it was always hard to get critical mass going. But if you're on that track of being Greenfield School for a start, is obviously a pretty good starting point. But even beyond that, to be able to set that culture by getting people sharing regularly and getting people to basically be on the same page and self-reflect on what each other's doing and what you're doing yourself. Probably
And I
a good
think,
starting point.
yeah, it is. And as you saw with some of our teachers, I've actually encouraged them to be out there sharing their craft with others as well now with the teachers at Manor Lakes, and that they're just loving it.
Yep.
They're just loving doing that. So if we can keep that going, then they're going to become teacher leaders themselves and feel good about themselves, and hopefully that'll, work its way down into the classes and with the kids, which is where we want it to go.
Adrian Cam's one of your mob, isn't he?
No, Adrian isn't. No.
Okay.
No, he's working at, let me think, he's working somewhere else. He's a math science leader and doing some amazing things in professional development at his new place. And I can't think what it's called at the moment. Okay. But no, he was with us on the day in New Zealand when you saw us.
And he just got accepted into the Google Teacher Academy.
He did. So you'll see him again.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. No, the people from my place were Corey Barclay.
Okay, yep.
So he's actually the one who's leading our iPad trial in our school. And also Sam Irwin you met, and Kate, you met her as well. So they're our people.
Excellent. Oh, well, I wish you all the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Hope it keeps going well. You mentioned Dropbox, so tell us about how you're using that.
Well, I use it personally, and I have for, about a year or so now. Mm-hmm. And the kids are using Dropbox to share their work with their teacher and with the other kids in the room or wherever. So it is about sharing out the larger files and then being able to access it. So look, it is. I think it's something that's probably fairly well known now, but it is a great tool to have, certainly with the larger documents.
Something that's worth mentioning too, and I did mention this a couple of podcasts ago, but it's worth mentioning again, is if you have a Dropbox account, you get 2 gigabytes of storage space. But if you tell other people about it and they sign up using the link that you provide, there's a referral program, and they will actually get an extra, I think it's 125 meg, maybe. Anyway, they get space, and you get space. Now, there's also another thing. There's a page somewhere on the Dropbox website that you can go to where they'll ask you to verify that you have a .edu email address. So as long as you have an educational email address, even if it's not the one you're using for Dropbox, as long as you actually own one and you can verify it by responding to an email sent to it, they will double all of those referral spaces.
There you go.
So I'm up to about 8.5 gig of storage at the moment.
Fantastic.
And I believe if you actually play your cards right and you do everything you can do, you can get 19 gig.
There you go.
So that's not bad.
I must go back into it and have a bit of a look. It was too long ago now when I first joined up.
No, it's very good.
So I must have a look. I keep going back to this, but to be the producers and to develop things. I've got one of our year prep teachers, as I was saying before, who was a year 7 last year and year prep teacher this year. What he's trying to do is develop apps. So he's been creating apps, and he's going to try as much as he can to get the kids interested in creating their own apps.
Yep.
That's certainly something that we'd like to see happening.
Now, you're talking about the older years, obviously.
I don't know. Yeah, the older years definitely, but why? Yeah, well, why not some of the younger ones? Don't know.
Have you done? I looked at app development. I downloaded the what do they call it? The software development, the SDK.
Yep.
And had a look at it, and I thought, this is a little more complicated than I expected. And I've done a little bit of development and programming before, and it was a little more complex than I expected. And I must admit, I just kind of didn't persevere with it at the time. It's something I want to go back to, but
I guess if it's just a simple little thing, Sam has created something that's just an RSS feed for joke of the day, for example.
Okay.
And that's really nice because now the kids can actually see the joke of the day and they can read it.
Yep.
Or if they can.
And who made that?
Sam, our teacher.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So, if it's something very simple like that, there's no reason why, the senior kids definitely should be able to get into that. But maybe, I don't know, I'm just wondering, maybe even some of the younger ones can start experimenting with it. Who knows? I mean, I'm not an expert at app development or even try, but when I see that somebody can do things fairly easily, again, you sort of think back 2 years ago when we'd say things like, well, I don't think the kids can actually do that. Kids can't do PowerPoint. Kids can't do this. Well, how do you know that kids can't do things unless you let them have a go at things? So maybe now if we let kids have a go at some of these creating experiences, they can actually come up with things that we never thought of. Who knows?
Quite possible.
I mean, that's really where I'd like to head with the iPads. I'd like to get them to be producers, and whether that's going to actually happen or not, I don't know. But that's certainly what I'd like to see them doing. I really don't want them getting into textbooks.
It's a bit of a waste of the device, isn't it? I mean, it's a great use of it. There's no doubt about that. And if you can have all your books on there, that's great. But that's kind of like, let's do that, and now let's start from thinking about what we can really do with it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that our people are getting into is EPUB. And again, they're trying to develop their own little their books online so that the kids got something to read, and that's a nice little feature as well.
And especially now that Apple's Pages actually exports as EPUB.
Yeah.
Which is very handy. And in fact, so does Adobe InDesign.
Oh, okay.
So you can actually do slightly fancier stuff actually you can do pretty fancy stuff in Pages as well. But the fact that stuff is now being able to be exported is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of actually the missing piece of the puzzle. If you look at the music side of or the sound side of things, Apple has that entirely stitched up from beginning to end. From GarageBand, we actually produce stuff, into the whole distribution channel through iTunes, into the whole final products where they have the podcast directory and whatnot, and they own that entire vertical distribution channel. And yet, I think there's a big gap there in the book stuff, because there's the distribution channel for the books through the iBook store or through the Kindle app or whatever, and then there's obviously the creation of books themselves. But the software and the processes for making books, I still think needs a bit of it's an area that's lacking still. Be interesting when they fill that one in, and I think the market for people producing their own content is going to explode the same way it did with the explosion of podcasting.
Absolutely. I think that's been one of the great things with some of the Apple programs, that you can develop so much yourself and so easily.
Yep, totally.
It's been fantastic over the years for us.
Yep, absolutely. As they say, we live in interesting times.
Yep.
All right, Ellen. Well, thank you so much for having a chat to me. Really appreciate it.
It's okay.
It's there's a lot of stuff there to think about in terms of changing schools and changing cultures and stuff. I saw a tweet the other day that someone said to me, everyone wants schools to be better, but nobody wants schools to be different.
Well, then they need to read Diff and Do for Day by Dr. Seuss.
Diff and Do for Day.
Yep. Have you read that one?
No, I've read most of Seuss, but not that one.
Yes, Diff and Do for Day is absolutely terrific for making schools different, unique, and all about the kids.
Is it?
Fantastic, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, great one for reading out to staff as well.
Hooray for Doof and Differ Day.
Yeah, have you found it, have you?
I just Googled it, yeah. Okay.
Very good.
Excellent. Okay.
Fantastic book, and that's what we're on about, Diff and Do for Day.
Good. I'll go and borrow that from our library.
Okay. Oh, it's been fun, Chris.
Yeah, it's been good to chat.
All right, then. I'll catch you later.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
A big thank you to Helen Otway for joining us today and sharing her wisdom. Much appreciated. If you've enjoyed this episode, you might like to check out all the others over at virtualstaffroom.net, where you can read the show notes and download any previous episodes we might have had. Thank you for listening. My name's Chris Betcher. Till next time, see you then.